Hi, I'm Abby and I just recently completed 75 Hard. This video will go over all my thoughts and changes made with 75 Hard, what I will be continuing after 75 Hard, and I am also including at the end of this video a 75 Hard Q&A from your questions that you've asked me in relation to 75 Hard. Before I get into this video, I want to talk about exactly what 75 Hard is. At its root, it is a 75-day physical and mental challenge that is built for you to learn self-control and discipline. You must complete 2 45-minute workouts per day. One has to be outside, and the workouts must be 3 hours apart. The whole 3 hours apart rule was something that failed me my first attempt of doing 75 Hard. You need to follow a strict diet and not cheat from your diet. Drink 1 whole gallon of water per day, read 10 pages of a nonfiction book per day, and take a daily progress photo for 75 days. 75 Hard is called hard for a reason, and I would say most of all, the reason why it is so hard is because of the discipline that it takes to continue on with the challenge the whole 75 days. When I first started this, I thought the working out would be the hardest part, easily. I thought it would be the hardest part, but what ended up being the hardest part was everything, all in one, keeping up with everything for 75 days and not quitting it. Waking up in the morning and being like, okay, we've got to do this. It is another day, let's get it rolling, instead of just laying in bed and quitting for the day. This challenge absolutely teaches you discipline, and it is the hardest thing of all. Forget the working out, forget the reading, forget this and that. All of it combined. That is what is hard to keep up with every single day for 75 days. Now I want to go ahead and get into each of the rules and kind of talk to you a little bit about how my journey went with each one. First, I want to go ahead and talk about my workouts. During most of this journey, I had a lot of very tired, low energy days. So a lot of my workouts as a result of that ended up being quite slow. What I consider a workout may not necessarily be what you consider a workout, and that is perfectly fine. But I consider a workout to where I am moving my body consistently for that 45 minutes. So when I first started 75 Hard, I got different kinds of equipment because I was trying to do other things than walking outside. And I did like some of those things. For instance, I got myself a weighted hula hoop and I liked that. I found it quite enjoyable. I got a jump rope. I did not keep up with the jumping rope, however. I sometimes did weights outside, but most of the time what you could find me doing out there for that 45 minutes was having a good leisurely walk while I was listening to my music. And what I found to do that was easiest and made the time go by the fastest was to put a timer on my phone, put my music or podcast on my phone, put my phone in my pocket, have my headphones on, and don't touch my phone anymore. Because when I first started this journey, I was always looking at the clock and I'm like, my goodness, this time is never going to go by. Because you have to understand, before this journey, I was not really doing a lot of working out, and I definitely was not doing a lot of working out outside. So 45 minutes for me outside in the heat and humidity felt terrible. And I was just always checking my phone. One day I was just like, look, I've got to put the phone away and I've just got to really listen into the podcast or the music and get my head away from the time and what I'm doing. And once I started doing that, it made the time slip by so much faster. And that is when I think I really started to enjoy my outdoor walks. And even now, almost a week later, I still love my outdoor walks. So that is definitely something that I'm going to keep up with for a long time coming now, but I will talk more about that later. For my indoor workouts, I had quite a few different things that I was sometimes doing, but most of the time I was on my exercise bike. When I first started this journey, I was usually on the treadmill, actually, on my first 75 Hard journey, and then my treadmill just died on me. But I did have my exercise bike sitting next to it that I just kind of gave up on a long time ago. And I was like, you know what? I'll give that another shot. And it ended up being my favorite thing ever above the treadmill because of this. I sit there and I can ride my exercise bike. I can either watch TV, I can do something on my phone. It's just, you're sitting and you have your hands available to you and you're not moving around a whole lot up here, right? So my favorite thing ended up being when I was like, you know what if I just get my reading done while I'm on the exercise bike? And that is what I started doing, and the time was flying by when I started that. So that is primarily what I did for my inside workouts, and I would absolutely recommend an exercise bike. I was typically at lower resistance settings, but it still felt like a good workout for me. Other things I did were YouTube videos to where I did not have to really use weights. I didn't have to do jumping or getting on the ground. Very, very basic YouTube workout videos. And I'm actually going to leave links to those videos down below that I really enjoyed, because there were a few that I went back and back and back to, just because, like the exercise bike, they didn't feel too strenuous on me, and it was something that I felt like I could do with it feeling like a workout. Those videos absolutely saved my life on days to where I was like, okay, I need to get off this exercise bike and I need to do other things with my body. Also, another thing that I got on this journey that I really, really liked was getting this mini trampoline and doing rebounding exercises on YouTube. And if you're like me, you'll look at the mini trampoline and you'll be like, wow, that looks fun. It takes me back to my days as a kid. I'll totally be able to do this, and it won't be any big deal. No. For me, rebounding can be quite a strenuous exercise. So I did not do that a lot of days, but it was fun on the days that I did do it, and I want to continue to improve with that. So overall, I would say that my workouts were, in summary, quite slow and what I felt I could do. But I was still moving my body for that 45 minutes, and that's a win for me. I didn't have any kind of plan. I didn't do a lot with different parts of my body. I had a plan to do that when I first started this journey. I was like, oh, I kind of want, Monday to be leg day and Tuesday to be all over day and whatever. But I quickly found out it just wasn't going to work for me. I just did what I felt like I could do. And a lot of days, they were just slow days. Okay, so now I want to talk about the diet portion of 75 Hard. I'm going to talk about each thing I did in part of the diet one by one. So for my first thing, it was no sweets, such as candies, cakes, cookies, things like that. Now, initially, this was quite hard for me because I do love sweets. Like, I love a good cookie. Last year at around this time, I could eat an entire cake by myself, not even kidding. So at the start, it was incredibly hard for me. But what I slowly started figuring out is that I could replace those kind of sweets with natural sweets like fruits. And that was such an immense help. So it really just helped, especially at the start, to have fruits in my house at all times to where I could kind of control those cravings a little bit more. Okay, on to the next thing. It is no soda. And I have to say that I didn't really struggle with the no soda as much as I thought I would. I think the reason for that is I was never drinking anywhere close to a gallon of anything. So when I was drinking that gallon of water in the start of this journey, I did not want to drink anything else. I did not want to drink anything more. I was so scared to even drink anything else in the beginning of 75 Hard with that gallon of water, because I was like, if I have anything else, there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish this gallon. So the soda didn't really bother me past like a week. My next rule that I set for myself on my diet was no eating past 8 p.m. I'm not sure why I set this, honestly. I was seeing a lot of diet plans online and everything, and I saw a lot of people recommending not to eat past a certain time. So I was like, well, I guess I'll implement it. It's just something I did because I'm sure some nights before 75 Hard, I was eating quite a bit more after meals or whatever. So I was just like, I'm gonna eliminate that altogether. This was only sometimes a hard thing. I would say the worst of it is when, my husband and I would get late home from something and it would be like 7:30 and I'd be like, shoot, like I can't cook a whole meal like I wanted to because I can't eat past 8 p.m. And it was just kind of weird. Like I had this strict little thing in my head, like even if you eat at 8:01, you're eating past 8 p.m. And I hated that. And I know that some people in the past are like, why are you being so strict with that? Yada, yada, yada. But you have to understand this is a challenge and it's meant to be like this for the discipline aspect of it. But I did hate it. And it was just funny because our dinner time started changing a bit to where it got quite a bit earlier. So that was kind of a funny part about this rule that I set for myself. I didn't intend for it to have an effect really on anything, but it absolutely did because you had to be conscious of what time you were eating. All right, on to my next rule that I set for myself was fast food only one time per week. And when I first started this journey, I think I had 1 or 2 people say, oh, fast food isn't allowed on 75 Hard. I have not seen anything like that. I've just seen that you're not supposed to cheat away from your diet that you've set for yourself. If that is a rule, my bad. I looked into everything I could possibly look into and I didn't see a fast food rule on there. So this is just what I did. I only did this because before 75 hard, I was eating out quite frequently and I really wanted to become more conscious of that, not only for like health reasons or anything, but also money. Like it costs a lot to eat out all the time and I was just tired of being lazy and I wanted to get back into cooking again. And those are my reasons. It really didn't have a lot to do with health than it did for other reasons for me. But nonetheless, it was very, very hard. Harder than I could have imagined to only have it one time a week. I even set it in a kind of way to where it was only one meal per week from fast food. Like when I first started this, my husband was like, well, what about on the weekends? Like, can we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner from like a fast food place? And I was like, no, it can only be one meal. So I would say it's definitely a rule that I dislike a lot of the time, but a rule that I feel like really helped me. My biggest thing is that I've gotten back into cooking a lot more frequently and have gotten a lot more into whole foods and things like that. I feel like that rule alone has changed me in a big, big way. It's just so funny how that one rule in the grand scheme of things throughout this journey has probably had the most effect. And that's just like I said, because I'm eating better foods, I'm cooking a lot more, which is something I enjoy doing and always have. I'm saving money by doing this. And it's just home cooked meals, you know, like those just, they hit different. One thing I will say is that I was always itching to get to that one fast food per week. It was like my little reward at the end of the week, but I always made sure it was something healthy. Like I wasn't going out and getting a big McDonald's burger. I wasn't going out and getting a big pizza or things like that. I was always being conscious of what I was getting. So most of the time, the only restaurants I would go to was Panera or Chick-fil-A. And that's because in my area, those are probably the two most consistent restaurants around with like healthier food options. And so that's what I would get. Like I would get from Chick-fil-A a grilled chicken club wrap and like a little lettuce wrap and some grilled nuggets, and I get a sauce on the side. And then for Panera, a lot of the time I would get like their little sandwich and a salad combos. It's like half a sandwich and half a salad. So that is what I typically got on my once a week fast food outings. All right, and then to get to my most dreaded rule ever. And I did not realize I would hate it so much, and I hated it. I hated it. And I've got to tell you, I will never, ever, ever do it again. I know some people are gonna think like, well, why wouldn't you if you wanna lose weight? Yada, 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 but I am never calorie counting again. For this journey, I set my calorie counting to 2,200, which was easily doable. I never went hungry. I hated having it constantly on my mind, like, oh, I've gotta track this and this, or oh, if I have a little bit of milk, I've gotta track that. It was not enjoyable for me at all, and I don't think it's meant to be enjoyable, but I think it was really starting to have a bad effect on me mentally. It was just something that was very overwhelming for me, and I was starting to get into a mindset of, oh, maybe I shouldn't have these carbs, even though like I can eat carbs. Carbs are okay, food is fuel. And I've never liked the mindset of, oh, I need to restrict myself or else I'll never lose weight. I will say there's only one reason maybe that I feel slightly happy that I did it, and that was to know what a good portion for myself was. And now that I know that, I feel like I can continue on without calorie counting because I will not be doing that again. And I mean that. It was just very, very unhealthy, I feel like, for me to do. I understand why other people do it, but for me, it was not a good thing. I was not in a good place. I will say it did start to become easier, and the reason why is this. I started having a lot of the same basic meals. And if I had previously made a meal that I had already tracked, I'm not going to weigh out this one. I'm just going to take what I tracked the last time and log that in. So that really helped to make the same consistent things all the time so that I wouldn't have to constantly be weighing and adding and all that. Like I could just take what I had before and put that back in. Another thing that started to really help me is people in my comments were like, you know, you don't need to weigh all your greens and all that. So I've stopped stressing about those completely. Another thing that helped is on Pinterest. I love to look up recipes and make new things. And I really liked that a lot of those Pinterest recipes had the calorie count already available to you. So that was a big help as well. But would I do this again? No, I would not. And that is just me and what I feel is best for myself. It was not healthy for me at all. So that was the diet that I had to follow for 75 days. So overall for my diet, I feel like I kept it relatively simple, which was good for me. I didn't do like a keto diet or carnivore diet. I didn't do a no carbs diet. I still had a lot of the same foods I loved, just obviously in moderation. I think a big thing for me is I did not want to do anything too extreme on this challenge, because had I done a diet like that, like keto, I don't think I would have lasted as much as I lasted with what I had done. My favorite thing about this diet that it has opened me up to that I didn't expect it to was whole foods. The way I eat now definitely incorporates a lot more whole foods. Okay, so now let's go on to talking about water. You have to drink 1 gallon of water per day, like I said earlier. For this challenge, before I started, I just ordered a big water gallon from Amazon. And some people were like, you know, you may not want to do that. You may just want to refill a tumbler or something. But I got used to it relatively quickly. My gallon, which a lot of it has washed off now, it had like timestamps all over it. And I found those timestamps to be extremely helpful. But I will say I really struggled with the water when I first started 75 hard. One day I took it extremely too fast and I got myself very sick. And on other days it felt like all I could do to drink that whole gallon, and I wouldn't get it done till like maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then I'd be up all night using the bathroom and on repeat. But as I started to get more used to it and getting more used to timestamps, and I was even completing it a lot of the time before the timestamps were over, I was typically done with the water between 6 to 8 p.m. And though I still had to use the bathroom pretty frequently, I was getting a lot better with the water. Like I said earlier, I was not willing to drink anything else, because you have to understand, before this journey, I was having maybe a bottle of water. Like that was all the water I was drinking. So a gallon was a lot for me at first. But once I started drinking in moderation with those timestamps, it was helping a lot. The timestamps were just so helpful for me, because I would just take little sips, make sure I'm to the timestamp that I need to be by the time that that time gets here. And that water bottle just really became my best friend. Like it went with me everywhere. It is a hassle, I'll say. Like me and my husband went hiking a couple of times and I was like, no, we're not gonna bring this bottle. But I do stay at home and I'm at home pretty frequently, so it wasn't the biggest of deals to me. I can see though how someone with a 9 to 5 or who goes out all the time would struggle with a whole gallon and would rather have a tumbler. But for me in my situation, the gallon worked perfectly and I would never want to give up those timestamps. Okay, now it's time to get into my next point, which is the reading. In total, in my full 75 hard journey, including when I failed, I read 5 books. And my reading shifted a little bit in this journey. In my first journey with 75 hard, I was reading self-help books. I read The Let Them Theory and Don't Believe Everything You Think. These were not enjoyable for me. I do not enjoy self-help books, and that is something I didn't know about myself that I was glad to figure out, I guess. Because I am a big reader. I am a big fiction reader, and I assumed that I would like the self-help books. Maybe they would actually help me in some way. But I didn't realize how much they would just be the bane of my existence. And to feel like I was being forced to, in a way, to read these books did not help that situation at all. I really disliked them, and I just read them just so I could fly by and get to the next book. I am not a fan of self-help books. It's just not my thing, not my cup of tea. And reading them really ruined that reading experience on 75 hard for me. I mean, it just did. I'm sorry. It was not fun. So what changed this time around with 75 hard is I got into true crime and memoirs. I started out with The Glass Castle, which was a very good and sad and made you angry kind of memoir by Jeanette Walls. I then got into Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann, which was a very good true crime that I feel like everyone should read. And also Educated by Tara Westover, which is another memoir. That's what I finished out my 75 hard journey with. I have yet to complete that. Those were much more enjoyable to me than the self-help books and really saved me in the reading area. For my progress pictures, at first, that was very hard to keep up with. And you're probably thinking, why? That seems like the easiest thing to keep up with in this whole list of things that you have to keep up with for 75 days. But it was not, because it was one of those things that could go out of your head so easily. Like it would be around 9 or 10 at night and I'm like, shoot, I forgot to take that progress picture. So I'd have to get out of bed, run and go do that. And eventually that did get easier, but there were still some days placed where it just absolutely slipped my mind and I wouldn't remember it until like 9, 10 o'clock at night. I also ended up taking the progress pictures in my underwear just because I felt like I could see the full scale of things, and I really liked that better than what I was doing, because at the beginning I was like wearing a big old t-shirt and leggings, which now to me doesn't really make any sense because you couldn't really see like the full scale of changes that were made. But yeah, like I said, that was something that was weirdly hard for me to keep up with at first, just because it is one of those easy things on the checklist that easily slips your mind. Okay, so now that I've talked to you about what 75 hard is and everything that I did on 75 hard and how that went for me, I want to talk to you about the results of the challenge. So the total weight I lost was 12 pounds, and I was a little disappointed at that at first. I was stepping on the scale, I would say, at least once a week during my journey. And for a while when I started this journey, the scale was actually going a little up. And I'm not sure why that is. I do have some thyroid issues that I just found out about at the beginning of my 75 hard journey as a whole. And I have an iron deficiency, which led me to be tired a lot of the days. But it was going up, and then it went down, and then it stalled for a while. And then I finally was steadily losing some pounds. So my first starting weight was 204 pounds. And then my final ending weight was 192 pounds. So I know that's not a significant number, but that is what I lost. It just is what it is. I will go ahead and show you my progress photos right here. Now, aside from those results, I want to talk about other results. I want to talk about the way that this challenge impacted me, the changes that I feel I will carry on after this challenge, things like that. My biggest thing easily that changed in this challenge is the way that I eat. I absolutely feel like that has changed me for the better. You know, even after 75 hard, you've still got to have the discipline to carry on with, you know, these things that you're wanting to carry on with. And what 75 hard has taught me is that I want to continue to incorporate a whole foods kind of diet into my life. I love it. I love to cook. I love to cook with fresh, good ingredients. I love food, you know. So the diet portion of this challenge, though there were some things that I definitely did not like about it, has helped lead me to what I believe I will carry on into a much healthier lifestyle with. Another thing is I love walking. I love to be outside in the nature. I love to have the wind around me, the birds singing around me, to feel the breeze, to feel the heat even. I love to be outside. And if you knew me before my 75 hard journey or before this year at all, you would know that outside was the bane of my existence. I hated everything about it. And now I get up in the morning and I'm like, wow, it looks really nice out there. And wow, the weather is cool this morning. This will be a very good walk. And I'll go out there and I will just put my headphones in and listen to music, or sometimes I'll leave them off and I will just walk. And I just enjoy walking. This is something I don't ever want to give up or take for granted ever again. Just the ability to get out into nature and to just walk, that is a gift. And I'm happy that I have found that gift, because I feel like had I not been forced to in this kind of challenge, I would have never understood just how good that is. It did a lot for me mentally and still continues to, and I have to say that I got into a point to where I wasn't even dreading the outdoor workout anymore. It was something I wanted to do. Okay, now it is time to get into my personal tips for if you're wanting to attempt the 75 hard challenge. These are just little tips that helped me that I feel like could benefit someone starting this challenge. One of my biggest things is to plan before you start, and if you plan before you start, don't make that plan too extensive. Really think about what you're wanting to do. If this is very, very new to you, as it was for me, keep it simple as you can. With the water, start as early as possible so you can finish as early as possible, because if you're finishing well into the night, you will be up all night if you're like me. Typically, my preferred day is I got up at 7 a.m., started drinking that water, and I was done with it by around 5 to 6 p.m. Plan your meals. Say it again for me, plan your meals. Especially if you're going into this challenge doing a calorie deficit or anything like that, plan your meals. It will make life so much simpler for you. When I first started this journey, I was making hard to make meals with a bunch of ingredients and having to log every single little thing into there, and that was not fun for me. That was not fun by any means. It was much easier for me when I would cook up some chicken breast, rice, and broccoli or something like that and have that as a set meal already logged into my thing, and then the next time I made that, already logged. That was definitely life-saving for me, being on a calorie deficit and in 75 hard. It was just much easier that way. We'll typically go grocery shopping about once a month at Sam's Club, but then every 2 weeks for little things at like Walmart or anything. Just to plan out my meal every 2 weeks, just every single meal. It was incredibly helpful and something I would highly recommend. Another thing is to have food readily available. Just little snacks, little fruits, things like that. A string cheese really helped me on a lot of days. Boiled eggs, any kind of fruits just to grab if I'm having little cravings. That really helped just to have those things readily there and available for me to eat. Another thing was me getting more into protein. It definitely kept me more satiated throughout the day. Next is to choose a realistic diet for yourself. If you're like me and have never really been in the diet world, do not go to the extremes. I did the calorie counting and absolutely hated it, but I couldn't imagine if I had done something like keto. Keep in mind that whatever you are choosing to do, you have to keep up with it for 75 days. For workouts, just do what you enjoy. Do something for 45 minutes, keep your body moving. My biggest thing is to look up those exercises if you're like me and feel like you can't constantly go up and down. Look up those exercises with no jumping and no getting down on the ground and things like that. It'll typically be like beginner/senior exercises, and those just helped me the most, and I really enjoyed them, and they still gave me a good workout. I would say the only thing hard about those sometimes is that when I first started this journey, I was very uncoordinated. But trust me, the more you do these YouTube workouts, the more coordinated you become. And now I feel like I'm capable of doing most of those beginner-friendly workouts all the way through without any struggles. Now for the end of this video, I want to go ahead and get into the 75 hard questions and answers. On my YouTube a few weeks back, I made a post, and there is all your questions for me to kind of question and answer. And I decided to divide it up with this video including the 75 hard questions, and then in my next video including everything that are not those kind of questions. And that video will be uploaded fairly soon. Kind of side note, I do think I'm gonna have a Halloween kind of video coming out this next time. We'll see. It will either be Halloween or the Q&A, but either way, that video will be uploaded in the next 2 weeks. I'm just trying to figure out things because we're hosting a Halloween party, and I'd really like to video like me making all these weird spooky treats and everything. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the 75 hard related questions that you guys asked. I'm going to go ahead and get into the most basic one, which is, will you be doing 75 hard again? Probably not, but never say never. I know for sure not anytime this year. Throughout the rest of this year, I'm going to take it pretty easy on myself. All right, our next question is, do you think the challenge would have been harder if you had a job aside from your small business? Yes. Easily. The thing about my small business is I choose my schedule and I stay home, and I think that made it significantly easier. I've watched people complete this challenge again and again with 9 to 5s. I give major props to them because I can only imagine how difficult that is to do. Okay, the next one is, what advice would you give to someone who desperately wants to do a version of this, but who also has a corporate 9 to 5 and 2 kids? That's rough because I don't have a 9 to 5 and I don't have any kids. I feel like I'm not the right person to give advice. If I were to give advice, I would suggest maybe to look into 75 soft. I've seen a lot of people have great results from that. It's still a challenge that requires your discipline, but also a challenge that just makes it a bit easier to work around with your schedule. And it's still a very rewarding challenge to complete. So I would definitely look into that. I'm going to include this in the 75 hard questions, but this is anyone in your family overweight / is it a genetic thing? A lot of people in my family are overweight. A lot of people in my family have diabetes, and a lot of people in my family also have problems with their thyroid. I'm not sure if it is 100% a genetic thing, but yes, a lot of people in my family are overweight. My next question is, how much did you weigh at your smallest and how much did you weigh at your heaviest? I'm assuming that this was meant in general. I have already gave my weight out for during my 75 hard journey, so I will give it in general in my adulthood. I'm not going to include, my teenage years or anything like that. I remember when I was 20 years old, I was probably 115 to 120 pounds. And then at my heaviest, which came pretty fast, I was probably 23 or 24, and I was around 230 230 pounds, I want to say, maybe 240. I was in that range. My next question is, which habits would you like to keep after 75 hard? Working out. Working out has got to be one of the biggest habits that I want to keep. It's not going to be 2 45-minute workouts per day, but I definitely want to keep working out on a weekly basis with a couple maybe down days in between. Like I said earlier, the walking in particular is something I don't want to give up, and I feel like that is definitely a new formed habit that will continue on with me. I would also like to keep up with the way that I eat. Somebody else asked, were you still doing your daily journaling with 75 hard? No. A lot of you may have noticed that at the beginning of my journey, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get into journaling every single day. And every day I'm gonna fill out these pages of everything I did for that particular day on 75 hard. It was gonna be my own little personal 75 hard journal. And, you know, in theory, it was a really good idea. But for me, I already had so much going on, and by the end of the night, a lot of the time, all I wanted to do was go to bed and not journal, which I used to love journaling, but I guess with everything that was going on every day, I was just like, no, I'm ready to go to bed. So I stopped journaling pretty early on into my 75 hard journey. I feel like I only did it for 8 or 9 days, and then I was like, nope, this is not for me. And then finally, for my last question, it is, will you be trying any other fitness challenges in the future? I'd like to say yes, I would. Something I've been thinking about is trying a kind of like steps per day challenge, because something that I noticed in my 75 hard journey is that a lot of days I didn't even make it to maybe 10,000 steps. And 10,000 is something that I want to become at least my bare minimum. Granted, I wasn't tracking anything with the exercise bike or anything like that, but that is something that kind of bothered me a little bit, because I was like, man, I should be stepping a lot more than this. So I was thinking of doing some kind of like steps challenge like that. I feel like that could be very beneficial for me. I'm not sure though. Are there any that you would like to see me attempt? Let me know. I do think for the rest of this year, I'm not going to be doing any challenges, but I definitely want to start off the new year with one, I'm thinking. So we'll see what happens. Now I think I'm just gonna end this out with saying that it was a hard journey. And one thing that I would really recommend as well is to have a good support system. For instance, my husband was probably my biggest support system, my biggest cheerleader. He was the person always there to be like, hey, I know you don't want to do this, but let's go do it together, or things like that. Having him consistently saying that you can do this, I believe in you, he was just there throughout it all, every step of the way. And it is very good to have that kind of encouraging person in your life who helps keep you on track. I'm very, very thankful to my husband for that. And also to all of you who kept me very encouraged and motivated along the way. Anyways, I think that's all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.